Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast series do not represent the official positions of the United States military or any branch of the armed services. These stories are personal experiences, shared by individuals who have proudly served our country and are now pursuing new careers and business ventures in the Virginia Beach and surrounding areas. The insights provided are unique to the individuals and do not reflect the military as a whole. Content warning. This episode explores sensitive topics including warfare, combat experiences, mental health struggles, and discussions of suicide. Listener and viewer discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is in need of support, please reach out to Inspired Purpose Counseling and Consulting LLC, based in the Hampton Roads area and featured during the Veteran Series.
We were there for one goal and one goal only, search and recovery. The sad part was the recovery of human remains and bodies that perished during that whole entire tragedy. And seeing that and feeling that, that was a lot of pain. Even though, me and others may have witnessed death in our careers, just seeing that still hit hard.
From the front lines to the home front, these are the stories of courage, resilience, and transformation. This is more than a podcast. It's a journey through the lives of those who served our country, now serving their communities here in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area. We're diving deep into the heart of their stories, their challenges, their triumphs, and their second chapters. Experience their journey from military service to entrepreneurship to giving back. This is the Veteran Series, only on the Discover Virginia podcast.
David, thank you for being on the podcast with us today. We're super pumped to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'd love to just get started with a simple question here, but what exactly is a polygraph test and what does it measure?
A polygraph test, and a lot of people are more familiar with the word lie detector. So it's the same thing, but a polygraph test measures your breathing, your sweat glands, your heart rate, and it measures your movement. Okay, if you do move, because we have what's called countermeasure pads when you sit in the polygraph chair.
Ooh.
So, and it measures your pulse, your oxygen level as well.
Oh, okay.
So we measure just about everything in reference to your physiology when you take a polygraph test.
So that's like in that I think it's called Meet the Fockers, where Robert De Niro kind of straps up his soon-to-be son-in-law and kind of does that test. Is that similar to that?
That's correct. Yeah, we measure everything. We measure your sweat glands, your breathing, your heart rate, and your oxygen level.
Wow. So is there a certain trait or personality that is shared amongst members of your profession? And like, are they good at reading people, or is it more of an acquired skill?
It's more of an acquired skill. There are many polygraph examiners throughout the country and throughout the state, but there are very few that are considered experts in this profession. And those experts are those that continue their education in reference to our profession and in reference to interviewing, in reference to body language, in reference to what people say and what the meaning is when they talk and tell you something. And so they become experts because the polygraph at that point becomes just an extension of the examiner, and they just use it more so for verification purposes.
Sure. And I can imagine that, it's just like any educational process where you go to school, you learn it. Do you think anybody can learn it? Or do you think there's certain traits that stand out for individuals that go on that path that make them more likely to succeed and get the certification and practice in a very, that results in good conversation and good feedback from the people they're interviewing for and testing for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do believe it's just like I've written blogs before. I believe that anyone can go to any type of schooling, just as like, high school and college and universities and trade schools. And you can sit in class and you can read the books, you can be taught by the professors, and you can learn the material. And then you can study, take the test, and then you graduate. But then afterwards, what happens is you've got the basics and you know how to do what you've learned. But then what happens after that becomes everything on you.
Sure.
And so what happens is what I say is there are many people that go to the polygraph schools, the basic schools. You learn your profession, but then afterwards, those are the ones that either become just inexperienced examiners because they've just gone to the basic polygraph school and they don't continue on with their profession. They don't continue on with certain types of examinations. And those are the ones, and I will say, those are the ones that hurt individuals. Those that become experts, they continue with their education, they continue with the procedures, the process, the updates in our profession, and those are the ones that really take the profession and the individual that they see serious because they're there to help the individual, and those are what's considered experts.
Wow. So if somebody's looking to hire a polygrapher and get the lie detector test, they should probably do their due diligence on who exactly is distributing the test then, because anybody that gets the certificate can do it, but you're suggesting that the ones who are experts like yourself, more qualified and continue to get the experience and development and the changes in the industry are better off as far as the desired results of the test.
I say that all the time, and you couldn't have said that any better, just like I say it. And I've written things, and I tell people that all the time. People tend to call, and they tend, just like when they shop, they tend to look for price first, all the time. And I always say, when you go look for a doctor, do you call right away and say, hey, doctor, how much do you charge to fix my broken arm?
Right.
No, you don't. You look for experience, okay? Or if you're going to get an operation or you're going to get your heart fixed, you don't go, hey, doc, how much is the operation for my heart valve? You don't do that. You look for experience in reference to fixing your heart. Well, it's the same with an examiner. But what happens is a lot of people tend to cheap out and they say, hey, what's the cheapest price, for you charge? And then they go to those individuals. Those are the examiners that are inexperienced, that don't have as much experience, and they are not considered experts. They just charge a very low price because they want to get you in the door. And then what happens is, and I say this because I have retested those individuals that have gone to the lower priced examiners, gotten the wrong results, and they've had to come back to me. Now they're paying double, right? Because they've already paid one examiner. Now they've come to me, paying my price, and now they have to get the correct results. And prior to that, what happens? Their life's back in shambles because they've gotten a result that has just about ruined their family, their children's lives, or whatever. And then they've come to me because they thought something might not have been right, and then I've had to repair it.
So what made you want to become a polygrapher?
Well, number one, it was helping someone. It's absolutely helping people. And I was in law enforcement. And I saw the need, after I got out of law enforcement, I saw the need that everyone thought that polygraphs was only for those that got arrested and only used in law enforcement. And I said, that's not true. People out in the real world, they could use this for many, many purposes, and it could help them. It could help them with integrity. It could help them with family issues, school board issues, you name it, it can help. And I've done that. And so that's why I decided to get into this field. And I can't tell you the number of people that I have truly, truly helped move on in life.
Wow. So helping people is this, innate desire that I think people have in general. And of course, for you, it sounds like the ability to connect in a way that kind of diffuses something that is inherently, in social media and in popular opinion, a bad thing. Like you did something bad, so now you need a lie detector test. When in all actuality, it's a service to help mitigate risks and also to assess an individual's ability to get a job or work in a certain field of work. I'm curious for you throughout your time, David, through law enforcement and military and things. Was there any event or series of life events that adapted you into the man that you are today and your willingness to help other people?
Well, I got to thank my mom and my dad. My dad, he was a World War II veteran and hero. So he instilled in me respect, honor, and I kind of followed in his footsteps, and I joined the military. After the military, again, I wanted to continue on with my service. I joined the police department, law enforcement, and I was at 9/11, and so I was a first responder. And so once again, volunteering, and helping people. Afterwards, in my law enforcement career, I helped probably the most serious victims, and I did child sexual abuse and women that were sexually abused and domestically abused. And so I dealt with that, and I became an expert in that field. And then when I got out, like I said, and I did polygraphs, it was just a need to continue helping people. And as you just said, my polygraphs are not just, those that are in trouble. I mean, I do a lot of that to help people, but my polygraphs are more therapeutic. In reference to, and I'll give you an example, in reference to, let's say a child was abused sexually when they were young, but the parent or guardian didn't believe them at the time. And so they were still victims, but they didn't believe them at the time. Now they're adults. It still has affected them, but now they want to get that integrity back to prove. They can't use it, let's say, for legal purposes, okay, because the time has passed to prosecute, but they still need that for emotional healing. So what happens is they'll call me and they will say, "Hi, I'd like to take a polygraph test because I want to prove to either my legal guardian, my mom, or I want to prove to the perpetrator, who's either a family member or a family friend or whatever, that this happened to me and no one believed me, and I need to prove that I was telling the truth the entire time."
Right.
So we schedule it. They come to my office, they take the test, and they prove that they've absolutely been a victim. You don't know the power of me being the first person in their entire life saying, "Hey, I believe you. You told the truth." And that's just so healing for them to move on in life, because they have closure that they can carry on and say, this is not going to define who I am now. I was a victim. Now I'm a strong woman. I got my integrity back. I'm going to move on. So that's what I do as a polygraph examiner. I give integrity back to individuals that, for whatever reason, I even get people that are falsely accused or falsely incarcerated out.
Wow. And I understand that you've worked with the FBI and as well as local and national law enforcement agencies that have, dealt with particular cases or experience that had the greatest impact on individuals, their respect, their integrity. I'm curious how those experiences and working on those jobs affected your career, as well as your position towards how you view and see people, whether that's in a positive or negative way.
Yeah, it's been an honor to work with multiple agencies in many realms, in my career, not just as a polygraph examiner, but, I was a hostage negotiator, a detective, and as a polygraph examiner. Sometimes a lot of agencies have their own examiners, but a lot of times those examiners were either tied up, busy, not available, so they would, see if I was available. I was able to handle those cases for them, and then end their case by giving them the answers that they needed so that they continue on with their proper investigations. So that really helped me because I worked as a team player. It wasn't just about me. It's about being a team when I was in that field with working with other agencies. And the question that you asked, how did that help me? It helped me with empathy and compassion for the people that I see today. I am non-judgmental. When they come into my office, I don't care. And I say that when I say I don't care, it's not that I don't care about the individual. I don't care what you've done in your past. I don't care what you're being accused of. I'm there to provide the facts and the answers to what you're there for, okay? And if you did the alleged incident or the alleged crime. I'm going to find the truth, and then I'm going to present those facts to you. And whether you want to acknowledge that you're wrong or whether the other party wants to believe the results, that's on you. I stand by my results. And so based on my whole entire career, it has defined me as an individual where I show a lot of empathy when I give tests.
Wow. And I can imagine that in a lot of ways, serving others is very rewarding, but in the other side of the coin, it seems like it could be pretty taxing on you as an individual for maybe situations that may have not always gone in the best interest of the individual. And I think back to that experience you had, Ground Zero, Twin Towers. Was there a part of that search and rescue for you that stands out to you as far as memories go of maybe, that positive or negative side of being able to work towards a goal in a team, but not actually, maybe getting the results that you were after?
Yeah, I mean, what the positive part was is that everyone during that time frame, obviously, is they were all around the United States. That's number one. And in law enforcement. They just loved law enforcement and the fire department. And we were there for one goal and one goal only, search and recovery. The sad part was the recovery of human remains and bodies that perished during that whole entire tragedy. And seeing that and feeling that, that was a lot of pain. Even though, me and others may have witnessed death in our careers, just seeing that still hit hard. And then afterwards, now that, and I'm sure a lot of people know that, after Ground Zero, there's a lot of toxic, particles that were out there. Sure. And I've lost a lot of colleagues that were there with me, and they have passed away since, or they've got cancer. And so, that part, I guess you could say, is the part that sticks in the negative way. The part that sticks in the proud way is I would do it all over again, volunteer, raise my hand, and go head first into any kind of building, because that's probably was one of my proudest moments, that I volunteered and said, I'm there. Yeah.
Earlier, you mentioned your father and mother playing a significant impact in the way in which you innately just desired to help people. And you mentioned your father was a hero to you. And I'm curious, what does hero mean to you, David? What does it mean to be a hero?
A hero to me just means that you step up when others don't. A hero is one that if you see someone doing something wrong to someone, whether or not you may get hurt or injured, you don't even think of that. You go and you help someone. That to me is what a hero is. And the other part of a hero is that you just don't think of anything about yourself. You just always constantly think about other people, and you just there to help people no matter what. And it doesn't mean that you have to constantly give someone money, okay? But you give of yourself in whatever capacity that you're able to give. To me, that's a hero, because the other person that's going to receive whatever you give them is going to be hopefully grateful, because you've given whatever you can, whatever they need or whatever the circumstances is at the time, they're going to be grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you believe that people are inherently good or evil?
Yeah, I think both. I think there are those that are bullies, and they're going to be bullies because they have observed that and they've witnessed that, and that's how they probably were raised. I think, and I see that, you're not taught, and let me back up, you see children when they go to school, they love each other, no matter what race, no matter what creed. Put them in elementary school, they love each other. Put them in first grade, same thing. Then when they get into the older grades, that's when the hate and the diversity begins, because I think, and like I said, I'm not a teacher and I'm not a psychologist, but I believe it's taught and it's observed by others, and they want to fit in. And the hatred is a learned mechanism. You know, I don't think you're born, a racist. I don't think you're born, someone that just, because you're an African American or you're Jewish or Asian, you automatically hate. I think you're taught that and you're learned that, and I think that's where what the question you asked. Are there evil people and are there great people? I think we all are born good people. I think you just learn to hate, and that's what happens.
Hey everyone, Michael here from behind the camera. Right now we're taking a quick break to acknowledge and thank our wonderful studio host, Atlantic Bay Mortgage Group. When it comes to getting information and guidance on financing your next home purchase, we recommend talking with Atlantic Bay. They are one of the original lending institutions in our home city of Virginia Beach, and have a long resume of getting the job done well and making your home buying experience more enjoyable. So, if you're looking to experience Virginia full-time, consider checking them out today at www.atlanticbay.com. Disclosure: loan programs may change at any time with or without notice. Information deemed reliable but not guaranteed. All loans subject to income verification, credit approval, and property appraisal. Not a commitment to lend. Atlantic Bay Mortgage Group, LLC, NMLS number 72043, NMLSconsumeraccess.org is an equal housing lender. And now, back to today's show.
So walk us through the history of the lie detector test, because I was looking through your TikTok and social media, and I've noticed that there were a lot of people commenting like, hey, I did this review, I told the truth, but I didn't get the result that I thought I would. Or maybe perhaps they got a result that they knew to be true, but still weren't happy with the way the process works. What's the history of the lie detector test in your experience, and how has it been adapted over time?
Well, it started in the 1800s by a scientist, and he started out with a glove. Put the glove in a vat of water to test the blood pressure, volume, and then it elevated and moved on to that.
Was the person in the water?
The arm.
The person's hand was in the water,
with the
and
glove.
they tested the water.
Correct.
Okay.
And then after that, it evolved. The very first known case, obviously, for polygraph was in 1920, where it was a law enforcement officer. He was a polygraph examiner, and then the individual allegedly committed murder. They tested him. He passed, but the Supreme Court at that point knocked it down because it wasn't as defined in reference to the science. Okay, but that was the very first known case in the Supreme Court in 1920. Ever since then, it has evolved tremendously. And now it is all computer generated. Before it was all analog, which I have one at home, and that's how I first learned on analog. It's now all computer generated, more modern, more accurate. And so that began in 1989. About 1989, 1990 was the computerized instrumentation. And now it is really, really accurate. But I will tell you, in reference to those comments, what happens is, and I say this and I'll say it again and again and again, anyone and everyone, when they go to school, can run a polygraph chart and run a polygraph examination. It is based on the experience of the examiner, how they formulate questions, how they interview the individual taking the test, and how they score it is what happens afterwards. So when those individuals, they come and they say, I know I was telling the truth, I absolutely know I was telling the truth. Well, what happens is, and they get the wrong results, a lot of times, and I'll say a lot of times, it is the individual, meaning they absolutely either did something, meaning they lied, or they did something, and they got those, the examiner gave them the correct results, meaning they failed or they showed some kind of deception or significant response. but they're not happy with it, and that's where you get that. On the flip side, you do have examiners that make wrong calls and ruin individuals' ability to get a job. A perfect example, and I say this, and I just got a call from the individual yesterday. He applied for a government agency, and I'm not going to mention the agency, but the agency's polygraph examiner tested this individual, and this was his dream job, his absolutely all-time dream job. He applied, took all the written tests, passed physical agility, passed everything, and it was time now for his final step, the pre-employment polygraph test. He took the pre-employment polygraph test. The examiner told him that it was showing inconclusive results, but then told him he failed. He called me because he saw my website. He called me. He was in another state. He called me and asked me what did it mean, and I told him, what it meant, and he asked me what should I do. I told him what he should do. He filed a grievance. He called me last night out of the blue. Called me last night and told me I was spot on, and that his grievance went through, and that now he's being offered a second opportunity to take another test with that agency, with another examiner, and hopefully he's going to do well, which he should have done well the first time, and hopefully he's going to get his dream job. So it is based on the examiner. I say this over and over and over again on the final results of the test. So
do lie detector tests always work then?
Yeah, they do. And I would say yes, they do work. They do. You always will show a significant response or no response if you are absolutely telling the truth or you're absolutely lying or holding back information. Simple as that. But it's based on the examiner's experience to determine that. And this is what I tell everyone when they come to my office. And this is what inconclusive results mean. And I'll say what inconclusive results mean. When you go to a doctor, okay, and the doctor gets your blood test or takes an x-ray and comes back with an inconclusive results, that normally means that either there was something on the negative of the x-ray or on the blood test that they just can't determine whether or not they can tell you what's really wrong with you. So they're going to say, well, we have to retest you. When it comes to a polygraph, when an examinee or the individual, they're called examinees, but the individual comes into my office, that individual knows whether they're telling the truth or telling a lie. Am I correct? They know that.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
They know that. They're there for a purpose, whether they are being accused of an incident or they want to prove something, but they know they're telling the truth or lying. So it's up to who? The examiner to make that determination whether they're lying or telling the truth. So it's based on the experience of the examiner to formulate the proper questions, to interview properly, to test, and to properly score those polygraph charts. And if it comes back inconclusive, that person sitting in the polygraph chair still knows whether they told the truth or lie. If the examiner says it's inconclusive, the examinee still knows, well, I know I told the truth or I know I lied, and he doesn't know. He's an idiot. So that's where that comes from. And the same goes that if the examiner says, you told the truth, and the examinee goes, I lied, then it's on the examiner. And what happens is, and that's happened with me before, not me meaning making wrong results, because I have not, and I can guarantee that. What I'm saying is I've had an individual examiner, and I'm not going to mention any names, who tested an individual who was sent to him by a probation officer, and he passed that individual for allegedly abusing children, and he passed them. But the probation officer and the therapist thought there was just something not right with that test. Something just was not right. So they called me and said, we're sending him to you, which to me, and said, we want you to retest him. Well, lo and behold, he was retested and he confessed to abusing over 100 children. So what that tells me is here's an examiner that passes an individual who abused 100 children, and then here I am who gets a confession and the test proved that he was lying, that says inexperience.
So the test itself is not the problem. It's the person distributing the test and the environment they set up as far as the questions go and how the test is performed.
That is correct.
Interesting.
That's correct. I mean, I can test anyone, okay, but if I make wrong questions, inappropriate questions, and I don't read the charts correctly, then that's on me, not the instrumentation.
Yeah.
The instrumentation is going to be very accurate. It is.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to read what the questions were, and the body language. It's going to read your physiology, not body language, your physiology. And so it's going to read what your physiology is putting out, and then it's up to the examiner to read what is the charge is just saying.
Sure. So there's other methods of discerning the truth other than the test, and it goes back to the interpretation of the test itself and the way it's presented.
And the interviews and everything. Correct. Yeah. Absolutely. That's why, to be honest with you, that's why my test, they'll take anywhere between 3 hours and longer.
Is that just to get to know the person better?
Correct.
And their mannerisms
interview and
such?
everything. Correct.
Yeah. So if we hung out for 3 hours, David, you'd probably be able to tell real quick if I'm telling the truth or not.
Oh, absolutely. I'll be able to tell everything about you.
Great.
Right, everything.
Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show here. No, I'm just kidding. So I understand, the environment really kind of adjusts the temperament of the individual, the examinee being asked the questions. And of course, the test, kind of dictates, the result. When it comes to your projects working on like the Maury show and other TV shows like that, do you think that those type of experiences skew the test one way or the other because of the publicity around the specific, the weight behind the results?
No, because I will tell you this, and everyone asks me that: are they scripted? Are they?
Yeah. What was it like working on the Maury show?
Right, and I do the Wilko show as well. So,
the Wilkos show.
Right.
Yep.
The tests are not scripted. They're not. People call the show, not me. I don't deal with any of that at all. I deal with nothing in reference to these guests calling the show. They call the show. They tell them what their issue is, and if it's good for the show, then they'll have them come on. I get the issue, and then I interview these individuals legitimately, just like I would do in my office.
Sure.
I formulate the questions, I test the individuals, and then I present it to the staff, and then they give it to either Maury or to Steve, and then he doesn't even know what the results are until the day of the show.
Wow, that's cool. So they're like reading it for the first time.
It is,
Yeah.
and they even get shocked. And I don't know if you've seen it, but they even get shocked themselves. So that's what they want. They don't want to know ahead of time. And your question is it different? It's not different because I made sure that when I was asked to do those, I told them I'm not going to do any kind of fake polygraphs. They're going to be legitimate, or I'm not going to do it.
Sure.
And they are legitimate. Now, I will tell you, there are lots of examiners around the country, mainly in California, that do a lot of Hollywood and a lot of stuff. They are fake tests for entertainment purposes only.
Sure.
Okay, so the examiner already knows the questions, the producers already know, and they already know what they want for ratings purposes. So those are for entertainment purposes. Those are not real whatsoever.
Gotcha. But the ones for the shows that you were a part of.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I did the one Love After Lockup. I did the FBI files. Those are all, everything that was all legitimate. And I did some other ones that were crime-based that were they wanted me to really test to verify, whether or not they did the crime or whether they were part of the crime or whatever. So yes, they were all legitimate, absolute polygraphs.
So when you look at all the TV and production projects that you worked on, obviously your goal was to stay true, to find the truth, and to deliver the best results. But I'm curious, on a personal level, was there a show that you enjoyed more over another show? And if so, which one was it?
I like them all. I like when I do like when I do, especially some of these that I do currently. I like when I get to do the crime ones. Because I feel when I get to do the criminal aspect polygraphs, one, they're more intense. They give more closure to individuals' families or to the individual that's been wanting serious closure.
Sure. There's more at stake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, and not to say that I do not take like an infidelity serious, because I do, or child custody matter serious, or a theft from a family member serious, because I really absolutely do. But when you're talking about, did someone murder someone? Did someone rape someone? Or, is a missing body somewhere? Do you know where the missing body is? That's something really serious that a family member has been suffering for a long period of time, and they need closure so that they can move on. Yeah, those are the type of polygraph tests that on the shows that I really, really delve deep in them.
Yeah, yeah. And so when we look at the overall trajectory of your career, I mean, 30 years of reading people, I mean, that's quite a bit of time. Have you gotten good at just being able to maybe, I mean, do you ever make assumptions before you deliver the test after looking at the body language and the interview and the examinee questions before you even, take a look at the polygraph test itself? Like, are you able to diagnose it beforehand?
Oh, absolutely. I read people very well.
Yeah.
My family doesn't like that. Okay. My son growing up, he did not like me being in the career I was, because I could look at him and say, well, you're not telling me the truth. And he would look at me like, how do you know? And so, I mean, he wasn't a liar, but you know how kids are.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah. And so, but the fact is, I can tell when someone comes in and I interview them, and I just know by body language or certain words that are coming out their mouths that, that's just not true. It's just BS.
Sure. Are there any traits that you find to be in common with each other when you are observing somebody that isn't telling the truth, that could be a quick little hack for maybe somebody who, is just trying to maybe just test it out or experiment with it?
Yeah, I always tell people, it's like always when you're asking someone, and it does, and I can tell this because it's not going to, affect when people come to me.
Sure.
When you talk to someone and you ask them a question, it's the way they look, right? So when I ask someone a question, I'll ask you, okay, a perfect question. And
perfect.
Are you in a relationship?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So you don't need to tell me who, what, where, when, or whatever. So you're in a relationship. So I'm going to ask you to tell me, and you can either lie about this or you can tell me the truth.
Oh, perfect. Perfect.
And I'll know, okay?
Okay.
All right. Is the individual that you're in a relationship with, every time they cook, do you love their cooking?
No.
Okay. And you just told the truth. Okay. And so, and you did, and you don't love their cooking every time. So you did tell the truth. Okay. Which means meaning that some things that they cook, it's okay. You eat it because you want to make them happy, or they don't want to fight in the home. But the reason why I noticed that is because of the way your eyes were. Okay. So
the way people look, can kind of
right.
Tell.
It's your eye movement. Okay. So I'm going to ask you this. Okay. So I want you right now to think, of one of your significant other's favorite foods.
Okay.
And the way it smells. I want you to think about it right now.
Okay.
Right now. Go ahead. Think. Right now, I want you to think about it. No, I want you to think about it right now.
Got it.
Okay, the way it smells.
Yep.
You got it? Okay, what was it?
It's going to be this like chicken curry.
Okay.
It's,
all right.
Tomato and.
All right. So, and what you did was you looked down, and I saw it because when you look down to a certain right or left, you're memorizing and trying to recollect that.
Oh,
so if I were to ask you something serious, I would watch your eyes and see which way. And so that's what I'm saying. Now, people are not experts in this, And so, but I would say when people lie, they look up and to the left.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting. So like, could you like trick it by like looking at your nose the whole time? I've heard that might help.
People, yeah, but you can't. People don't. It's always an eye, and the eye, it's very, very quick, very, 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 like instant. So you people aren't going to be looking like this. You got to look. Yeah.
So the evolution of putting your hand in water to analoging, different people's responses to now the computerization of the lie detector test. What do you noticed about being maybe, from the Maury show to having, TikTok, some of the things that the industry has adapted to present itself to the public, and in so what ways?
You talking about what has the modern
the evolution of the job? I'll rephrase that again. I probably asked that poorly. So the evolution of the job, how has it changed over time, and in the way in which presented to the community and the public in general?
It's the enhancement. The education has enhanced tremendously, which means before an individual went to school, it was not as long. Now it's really intense. The internship. Some states, you have to be licensed in order to even be a polygraph examiner. Once you're licensed, you have to continue with your education. So that helps the individual. And like you said earlier, and I keep repeating it, you must do your research, your due diligence when you find an examiner. Don't just look for the cheapest price or can I get in this day. And that's an important thing as well. A liar is a liar today, tomorrow, yesterday, and 20 years from now and 20 years back. So it doesn't matter if you get in right now. If you're rushing to get in today, it's not going to get your results any better if you wait maybe the extra day to get in with an experienced examiner.
Sure.
It's not going to get your results any better. It might get your results faster, but it could get your results incorrectly by rushing. And it's the same with a truthful person. So if you're very, very truthful and you're honest and you rush because you got a cheap examiner and you got
you don't have anything to worry about. Yeah.
Why would you rush? Get an examiner that's experienced. And so your question, again, to go back to your question, the evolution has really changed to help individuals. And before it was like, hurry up, quick, test, get in the chair, ask the questions, and get out. And it was all about before. It was all about the examiner making quick money, get out, didn't care about the individual.
Sure.
Now examiners really that take this profession serious. It's about helping individuals get the results that they really need.
Yeah. What's something that still surprises you about people and when you interact with them for your job?
That there's not one geographical location, profession, race, or age that is not going through a problem that another person is going through today. Which means if someone is going through a domestic issue and they're very rich, the next client that might come into my door that is not rich, they're going through the same identical problem that a wealthy couple is going through. So what I find is when they call me, and a lot of people call and they're embarrassed to tell me and talk to me,
Sure.
and I've heard it all. Do not think I've not heard it before, and do not think you're going to be the first or the last individual that I've not heard it from, because I've heard it from anyone, and I've tested, you name it, I've tested. I've tested judges, lawyers, Navy SEALs, CIA agents. I've tested, you name it, I've tested. Housewives, moms, dads, anything and everything. So everyone has an issue out there, everyone. And everyone has a story to tell. And everyone has a past. everyone has a past, but your past should not define you. So if you want something to get resolved, I say take a polygraph test, and if you have nothing to fear, you have no worries to pass that polygraph test. And it's as simple as that. So that's what I've found with every individual. That's why when they come to me, I don't judge, because I've heard it all.
Wow. David, thank you so much for the conversation today. And thank you for our dedicated listeners for checking us out on another episode of Discover Virginia Beach podcast. Tune in next week for another episode.